Greetings, everyone, and welcome to episode 455 of Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. Thank you for joining me. My name is David Reed. I am privileged to be I'm privileged to have back with me Ben Robinson of Master Replicas. Sir, it is a what is wrong with me, Ben? I am stumbling all over myself. I don't know what's wrong. It's a privilege to have you back.
It's not a privilege. It's just a pleasure, maybe.
Yes, okay. I will concede that point. It's a treat to have you back, and I am always delighted to see what it is that you have to share with us, because you come with some great toys. So you guys have been working on a couple of new Stargate pieces, but largely first, before we get to that, how you doing? What's been going on?
I'm well. It's been ridiculously hot in England.
Yeah.
Football team's been doing well, so the nation's a bit happier. Bit of sunshine, but you see, Americans don't have this. You do not play sport against other nations. Apart from maybe a bit of hockey, the Canadians that kick your ass. But the English and the rest of the world, we all play sport against one another. So think of it like System Lords, all kind of like having some kind of sports tournament. And that gives you some idea of how people feel and how excited they get when their sides are doing well. So it makes a big difference to people.
Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons we appreciate the Olympics as much as we do, because it's really our chance to get our feet wet with some of the other nations, well, the large majority of them, and just see what we're made of. But yeah, you're right, we're pretty isolated that way, especially with the size of the nation that we have. But how are things going at Master Replicas? What's new and noteworthy, and what's going on?
What's new? What's noteworthy? I've only brought a few. I've got a few little Stargatey things to show you, but we do these.
Okay.
What else has been going well? We're doing Doctor Who cards. I've spent a lot of my day looking at Daleks. Do Doctor Who trading cards, which I started doing 20 years ago. And we just
really?
And to my delight, I was going to say amazement, and probably that's not unfair. My delight, they seem to be doing really well. So they were like my first really big hit as a creator. So it's really
collectible trading cards.
Yeah, this long story, but we printed 1 million packs and thought they would last a year, and they sold out in a week 20 years ago. So it's not quite in that territory, not quite as insane as that, but they're back and they're doing really well. People seem to be very excited to have them back, so that's good.
Excellent.
We've got some we have to wait till we can announce it. There's a very famous science fiction property that's coming back probably about the beginning of next year, that we might have the license for. But I'm not allowed to well, we signed it. I can tell you that we signed Blade Runner, and we do a beautiful little replica of Deckard's car, actually from Blade Runner 2049 rather than from the original film, because that's where the rights were available. So we've got Blade Runner stuff coming, but can't tell you what it is until it's been cleared by the filmmakers. What else? More Star Trek always. The light up panels, like the coup de grace LCARS Master System.
Yes.
Display. Got some more of those coming. Just done the original series. Constitution class. It is the Enterprise, but I guess it was designed to be the.
Do you have Mike and Denise consulting?
Yeah, well, they created. Well, in this case, this particular bit of art, the one we've just done, Doug Drexler made, and he's just been emailing me saying, "How can I get one of these?" And also Jeff Mandel, who's another member of the Star Trek art department. He and Doug go way back when. But yeah, I hope I'll be out for the Star Trek convention. I hope I'm going to see Mike and Denise when I'm out. But they're getting on. I was realizing that Mike's in his 80s. I'm guessing Denise.
Exactly. Yeah. No.
They are lovely people.
Absolutely. So you're talking about the Vegas con?
Yes. So
that's coming up.
The first week of August. Yeah.
Oh, wow, it's August. Okay, very good. Yeah, right in
Yeah.
the you think it's hot there.
Yeah, well,
try
Vegas
try
is Vegas.
50
I don't
C.
mind it being hot in Vegas. It's okay for it to be hot in Vegas because everything's geared up for it. You know,
That's
you
it.
you you go inside. There's no light. There's no heat. It can be freezing cold. It's
This is
fine.
true. This is
Here,
true.
you just can't. There's no way getting away from it. You know, you're in your house and there's no air conditioning, and it just gets hotter and hotter and hotter because there's nowhere for the heat to go.
Okay, I can see that point. Um, you guys are developing this guy right here. This oh, thank you. I'm
I
good.
mean, this guy.
Join the newsletter. Yeah, not the NXO one. The Serpent Guard. Dang it. When I click on it, okay, there we go. The Serpent Guard helmet. And
Yes.
do you have an example to show us? Oh, there it
I
is.
do. You see, you're too busy looking at your screen.
Wow.
So that gives you
Look
again,
at that.
always gives you a sort of sense of scale, designed to sort of sit on your desk is the idea.
Okay.
We had a lot of debate about how big it should be. How big do you want your Serpent Guard helmet to be?
So you arrived at something that you wanted to be able to kind of be a paperweight.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, the idea for me is that we've done see how people use these things, and we've done a lot of research to show that people will put them on their desks. Basically, a lot of people like to put them like around the monitor. So
does it come off of the stand or does it sit there?
Huge. It will do. This one doesn't.
It will.
But
Okay.
this is an early prototype. So
look at that paint job.
Yeah, it's that's the goal.
Absolutely. Is this the one that was photographed on the screen here?
Yes, it is. I'm just trying to keep it in focus. It's like you don't want to look at me.
There you go. Yeah, you want to put it in front of your face. There you go.
Cover my face up and you'd be fine.
Jeez.
So yeah,
Dude.
as you can see, yeah, the idea is to be as desirable and as detailed and as accurate. You know, we spent a lot of time studying photographs from auctions as possible. So yeah, that's the first in a new line.
Wow. Okay. So when you're creating a piece like this, did you have any kind of digital information to go with along with the photographs? Did you have any measurements of the molds that they use to create these in the show, or is this okay? So this is a lot of meticulous.
Yeah, a lot of careful research. I mean, what you find with these things, I mean, you will know better than I do. You know, you are the person we come and ask. The studio.
The thing is, I've got a helmet right there. So
yeah, the studio doesn't keep this stuff, as you know.
This is true.
You know, I mean, even if they had it when they were filming,
that's right.
But even then, the licensing department wouldn't have had it. It would have been, you know, it would have been there for the filming department, for the production team. So no, when we do stuff like this, one of the things that's different about a company like ours is that, you know, normally if you go to a company and they give you a license to do something, they also give you a style guide and they say, here is all the stuff that we have, and you know, help yourselves. And the problem is that we said, well, we wanted to do this, and they go, oh, well, we don't have that. You know,
so it's up to you to do what you have to do.
What happens is what we have to do is we have to do our research. So we have to find collectors like yourself. We have to find good references. So often auction houses, really good reference. And a lot of that's very searchable online now. So you get all that. And then on top of that, it's one thing knowing what the prop looks like. You then, you know, the prop doesn't always look exactly the way you think it does. Sometimes it's a bit rubbery. Sometimes it's got little flaky bits on the corner or whatever, none of which used to show on TV before everything was in HD.
Yeah, it's aged.
So, you know, we also go and make sure we look at the shows to see what it actually looks like on screen, because it's color graded and all of that. I mean, and you know, someone once told me that NTSC stands for never the same color. I think I might have said this last time I was on it.
Yeah, it tracks.
You know, so you do your best to sort of really be as accurate as you can to the prop, but also to make it look the way it's supposed to look by you know, looking at it on screen.
Okay. Have the pre-orders been healthy for it?
Yeah, they have. I mean, you know, we're very much sort of carrying the flag for Stargate. It's been very, we found the community to be very enthusiastic and very responsive, and I think probably starved for product, and certainly for product that is as deep, that is a proper deep dive. And I guess niche isn't quite the right word, but you know what I mean. It's something that is for the discerning fan rather than just for someone in a couple of episodes. So yeah, but we find Stargate to be in a very healthy place, and we're very, very keen to support that.
What are the materials for this particular piece?
This one's polyresin.
Okay.
And that's because that's really the best way to take the detail. So if you want fine line detail, polyresin is the best thing. It takes paint really well as well. It's a scale thing as well. If you were going up something bigger, then maybe you want to look at metal, but then that becomes very expensive, very heavy. So polyresin is generally speaking, I would say the best thing for this kind of product.
Wow. In a situation where something like this is a completely different paint job compared to something like the 0-point module, which is designed to look like
yes,
glass.
The DPM isn't painted at all. It's the color is injected into the material.
Oh, it's injected molding. Okay, very good.
Well, and there's a combination of the two things. There's a bit of paint involved, but it's not. It's still the ZPM, which is. And now I have one that lights up, but it's gonna.
There you go. It looks better in person.
Powerful. It's too powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
But that.
Yeah, very nice.
One of the things we talked about with that is how do you get that's actually. When I'm looking at that versus what I'm seeing on my screen are quite different colors.
Yes.
So it's much
this doesn't do it
orange.
Justice.
It's much more orange and amber. If I put my hand up, maybe I can start.
That helps a little bit, yeah.
But the camera is making all these decisions for you, and the same thing happens on screen. When someone's filming, so you see that those colors will change. But I'm going to turn it off because you can't see me. But yeah, they're different. They're totally different techniques. I mean, what is similar is that they are very carefully digitally sculpted. So you create your own digital version of it that you can then use to tool and create your replicas.
How long did this artist take to synthesize this particular helmet? I mean, is this a month-long project? Is it a couple?
It's a couple of weeks. It's
oh, wow.
And then a couple of rounds of corrections. I mean, you'll have something respectable within a week.
Okay.
And then you going back and forth and sort of picking up detail and saying, I think you've missed this here, or I think that curve is slightly sharper or shallower or whatever.
Well, I'm just looking at the sheen on the paint. I guess probably a better comparison rather than the ZPM would be something like the puddle jumper, where that was just layers and layers of getting the paint right. This is extraordinary. I mean, it is this big in reality, but like this photo, it doesn't look it. It looks bigger than that. I
mean, that's one of the problems with photography with any of these products is trying to explain to people how big something is.
Exactly.
Because you see a photograph and you're like, well, the level of, and particularly when we try really hard to get as much detail in as possible. So you look at it and given the level of detail, you think it might be, full size. I mean, lovely as it would be to have full size one. I'm not sure many people have somewhere to put a full size. Obviously you do. But, for most of us, it's about having a little shrine, I guess.
That's right.
You can put them on a shelf or put them around your desk, as I say.
It's a conversation piece, it's beautiful.
Well, I think it's also about, I don't know about other people, but for me, you watch the show and then it's over. And somehow you want to bring it into your life, into your home. You want to kind of like, just make it last a little bit longer. Just make it, and without having to sort of sit down and like pay attention for 44 minutes, whatever it is. Just be able to have it there and to sort of be part of your life. Someone once explained that to me about why people buy branded mugs, why people would buy an SG1 mug or whatever, that loads of us work in these little kind of Dilbert cubicles. and they're completely anonymous. And the one thing you can do is you can have the mug that sort of says a little bit of who you are and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, it's something that sets you apart.
Yeah, or something that's you, and it's a real
Hmm.
passion for you.
Hmm.
And now, maybe it's a little different. A lot more of us work from home since COVID.
Hmm.
But you can customize your space and make it, fill it with the things you love. You can have your little corner of the den, whatever, that has shelves, perhaps not quite as impressive as your shelves, but
I am, yeah, let's set me aside. I am different, but it's I am very impressed with the price point for that. I mean, it's not uh too large. It's not insanely small either, because is it, would you call it a metal, or would you call it what was the word that you used for it?
polyresin. So
Polyresin. So it's not a metal.
it's not metal. It's
I'm
got a bit of
staring at this
metallic
thing and I'm
sheen.
convinced it's metal.
Well, that's the paint, you see. So
That's
if you
wild.
the actual prop isn't metal, is it?
Yeah,
I
I don't
mean,
think so.
they're
I mean,
painted.
based on what you said, but it looks so. Let me pull this thing up again so everyone can see it. I'm just so impressed with this paint quality, and the texture on it. I am left. My brain, every time I look at it now, is left with the impression that I'm going to touch it and it's going to be very, very cold, because
Well, it is a little
it's a
cold. There's
metal.
an interesting trick to the formulation of the resin, just to make it feel a little colder and a little
Oh,
more
interesting.
solid. It's like a stone thing. It's like a stone
Okay.
thing, but it's painted to look metallic.
Okay. Now, do you have the same license for the helmets from the films, or is that separate?
You know what? I would have to double check whether we have the helmets from the films in the license. I think we are allowed to do anything we want from the films as long as, apart from possibly a couple of likenesses.
Okay. Folks, if you have questions for Ben, if you're joining us in the live chat right now, you can get those over to my moderators. They're standing by to provide those details over to me. Ben, I have a question from Ibreck. He wants to know, has Amazon's acquisition of MGM changed anything for them in the way they work, how the license is managed, or the approval process, different people maybe?
No,
How has
not
the relationship been
really.
going?
Not really. I mean, the same people have been, particularly with Stargate. I mean, I haven't checked in. Could we deal with a UK agent, and they deal
I
directly
see.
with the people at Amazon or MGM? But the last time I had a conversation with anyone at MGM, it was actually the same people I dealt with on Stargate 5 years earlier. Before they got
Okay.
bought by Amazon. Um, one of the things for those companies is they get some expertise in a house, and they need to hold on to some of that. They do appreciate that Stargate is not just a logo on a t-shirt. They understand that the people are passionate about it, and they have to have people who know. But yeah, I mean, and there are different people at Amazon as well. So the person you're talking to is at the top of the tree is a different person, and they have other priorities as well. But um, there's nothing sinister, if that's where the
I
concern is.
imagine you get feedback from the different fan bases, in terms of like people who are fastidious over quality. Like, well, this detail here, you're missing the intercoolers on the sides of the warp nacelles on the spaceship, or like anything like that. Uh, you
Yeah.
have a number of different properties. Which ones are the more virulent for that? Where you'll get more. I'm really
Well,
curious if you're willing to share.
well, um,
Or
I would
notorious, should I say?
I would say that what happens is that when you first start doing something, everybody is very pleasantly surprised at the level of quality and the level of detail that we've been able to include. So I would say I remember a Star Trek thing. We did a freighter from Enterprise, and it had a cargo freighter, and it had the cargo pods on it, and there were decals on the cargo pods that were on the CG model, but you
This is the
couldn't see them on
Horizon.
screen. Yeah, the
Okay.
ECS Horizon, and you couldn't see them on screen. I think it's about ECS Fortunate actually.
Oh, the
Um,
Fortunate. Okay, season one.
yeah, and you couldn't read the labels on the cargo pods on screen, but you could on our model. and they were there on screen. You just couldn't read them because there wasn't, they just didn't get close enough. And I remember people being blown away by that. People were like, "Oh my God, this is really like picking the thing up and being able to see it in more detail than I actually could." But after a while, people then start to hold you to the standard of the very best thing you've ever done. So, when you've done something that you're really proud of and really great, everything after that just gets compared to it. So it's like, well, it's not as good as the Reliant. It's not as good as. So, and people are entitled. I mean, you try to do so, but I think people tend to forget how much work goes in, how much care and research and how reasonably priced things are compared to the number of man hours versus the number of units sold and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So you get a little bit hoist with your own petard, which means blown up with your own bomb, but because people come to expect certain things of you. So yeah, I mean, I would say probably on Star Trek there are probably the most. I think also what happens on Star Trek more than on any of the other properties is that the things have a life outside their life on the show. So there's a lot of beta canon stuff where
fan films,
all
kinds of things.
People have got hold of the CG assets. There's the STO version of the assets. And you can also get into sort of people have different opinions about what isn't canon, and doing stuff that it was. I mean, I think, particularly on Star Trek, there's a lot of stuff that people only really know about because I told them about them. We did 400 ships. I mean, there are definitely people who know about all of them. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there isn't anybody out there, but there are a lot of people who didn't even know that this existed or that. And also because we sadly don't have it with Stargate, but we did with Star Trek, was all that publishing. There's that, we were able to introduce people to the concept artists and to talk about the origins of things and the intentions of things, and that, published a few books on the same subject. So, all of that helps to you create the knowledge that is then used to nitpick against you.
Correct.
But
yeah,
but that's the goal as well,
You brought up something interesting. I recently recovered through a friend a number of Stargate Universe artwork pieces that we thought had been destroyed. And one of the things that I have always wanted is for James Robbins to come out with an illustrated a book of all of his work. Is that something that you would be interested in pursuing? Since I mean,
the problem always with that kind of thing is that you really, in order for a book to be available in Barnes and Noble and to a lesser extent on Amazon and those kind of places, you have to persuade a publisher that there's enough interest. And the way it works is they need to sell a certain number, and that number is frustratingly just around the kind of slightly. It's very close to the number that you can be kind of confident of, and it's quite easy for something to dip below that number, and sometimes it goes above it. And then again, the other thing we talk about is people are very, people don't appreciate that things cost as much as they do to make. That sounds horrible. But people go, "Oh, that's expensive," and it's not expensive for what it is.
Right.
And we all remember our childhoods. On the whole, people don't try to charge a lot of money for things. People, even if you go and look at a beautiful sideshow piece, it's not expensive for what it is.
That's right.
It's expensive. It's an expensive thing. But it's when you think how much work goes into it and all of that it's not.
Oh, I've got downstairs, I've got the Art of Ralph McQuarrie and the big one, and I forgot how much it was, but I mean, in the scheme of things, there's the thousands and thousands of hours of work that were put into creating something like that. In the scheme of things, it's a song. But that's
And in
something that I
that
would
book,
really be interested in seeing, because you're talking about, the nice thing about the 400 ships that you did was that you had a lot of companion stuff that you could put out with them, like booklets and things like that. And I would really love to see, something like James's art
yeah. I mean, I think it would be a
available.
great book. There's no question it would be a great book. It's just finding a publisher who's like, okay, well, when did anyone last publish a book on Stargate? How many copies did it sell? That's how it works. So you have to convince somebody that there's enough volume there to make something work.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to pay for the license, and you have to pay for this and for that, and it's
Sure. Is that something I can approach you offline about?
we can talk about it. I can definitely try to find.
Okay.
I mean, there's a possibility. There's a maybe, but this is why people get excited by Kickstarters and things like that.
That's the thing that I'm thinking about. The role-playing game. It did insanely well, to the point where well, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut on that. But yeah, there's you guys have been responsible for so much cool stuff, and in terms of the merchandise for the Stargate arena, it's begun to get a little bit better. But I'm just going to say that there are certain manufacturers and vendors who are creating less than quality product, in my opinion. Present company excluded from that observation. But there's,
if we don't make something, with that level of detail, people just won't buy it from us. I mean,
that's the thing, but I think that there are still a few rocks to turn over in terms of like the assets that are available, concept art being a big one.
Yeah, I mean, we are
fans would like to have, and like coffee table book form.
Yeah, we're very, very open to trying to make any of these things work, and very open to people pitching ideas to us. I mean, Stargate, the problem with all of these things is that you find a product that works. So, we've done the ships, obviously, and I should have got some out for this as well. The ships, and we're still doing ships. I know there's been a bit of a gap, but there are ships on the way, and we'll have some news pretty soon. But Stargate doesn't have, Stargate, you go through a Stargate. You don't necessarily get on a ship. So it doesn't have 400 ships. I mean, for sure. So, the ships work, and then you think, well, there's an appetite for Stargate. There are people who, if you make it right, people will want it. But you've got to make it right. And you've got to find the right thing, and you've got to find the things that people want, and knowing where that line is an experiment. You try each time. You say, oh, well, I wonder if they'd like replica helmet. And you say, oh yeah, actually, yeah, they do seem to want replica helmets. Well, we've done the Serpent Guard helmet. What other helmets could we do?
So Jedi Greedo actually brought that up. Is Anubis's Cull Warrior a potential for the helmets?
Yes. I think you can say potential is a confident word.
Very good. Very nice. Martin Teichel wants to know, do you plan to make any helmets that did not make it into the show, but had they had the production budget, they would have, like Bastet for a cat, Crocodile Sobek, is it an Ibis for Toth? IBIS? I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Yeah, I guess that would be an Ibis, yeah.
Like theoretical helmet designs?
I think that very much depends. I mean, look, we've just done one, and it's the one everybody knows and everybody loves.
This is true.
So, if it sells phenomenally well, as I hope it will, and we might have another one already underway. But once that's done, I think you then have to, again, it's like, is there going to be an appetite there for it? Because you have to persuade the bosses, the people with the money, that this is worth the risk, because this is not free. I mean, they and if it doesn't work, people lose money. So all of that, I mean, the more people petition us, the more people go onto our social media and say how much they want something, the easier it is to sell something in to people.
For sure. Absolutely. Stargate Seed wants to know, any updates on a possible Kino replica?
Yeah, it's underway. I mean, we're looking at it. Again, that would probably be life size, I guess. Um, Kind of makes sense. Yeah, that's pretty much the same size as the Serpent Guard helmet. So yes, that is
Substantially heavier.
definitely on the list.
Perfect. Yeah, no, this would be tricky to manufacture, but not impossible. So, but there's a very specific way of doing it.
It's okay
So, and this
as long as it doesn't have voids. So if the outer ring wasn't in contact with the inner ring, that becomes a problem. But I believe on the Kino it is, so we're okay with that. Used to have lots of problems with Borg stuff because it's kind of you're meant to be able to see all the way through if you stand in the right place, and that's really difficult.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Kino Music Radio, coincidentally enough, question about the helmet. Well, wait a second here. Potential custom picks. So we already answered this question. So the helmet will, on the version that will be available, will be able to be removed.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect. He's thinking of doing a custom base for a full collection of them if you guys come out and do a series of them. So that's the nice thing about, and I think I don't know if I had this by the last time you were on, but I love the fact that the fan community and Master Replicas can come together. I mean, what a great idea, to have. Would this technically be a diorama?
I guess it is. Yeah, it's a bit of a diorama.
I mean, the creative. This is Martin McLean, SGA Gate Builders, and these are the craftsmanship is ridiculous, and the fact that you can bring an officially licensed product together with something that a fan has made, always blows my mind.
I think that's always makes me really happy to see it as well, because we're in the business. Well, we make sets of things, so because we started with the SG1 gate, the floor for the SG1 gate is complicated. It's not the easiest one. So you do a stand, and some people love the stand, some people hate the stand, but then you want the next one to look like it's part of the same set. And then the next one is that. I think the universe gate's not even really raised off the ground at all, is it? It just sits.
Yeah, it just sits on the ground. And if you can have you seen the design that SGA Gate Builder has made for the Universe Stargate?
I haven't.
I've actually got it. I don't have a Universe Gate. I forgot to buy one, but I've actually got it downstairs. If you wouldn't mind me grabbing it, that's actually available. If people go ahead and
why don't we do it afterwards? There's other people are watching this.
That's a good idea. Absolutely. No, I was going to actually tee you up with a question, and then because I can listen to you downstairs while you answer. But anyway, are you concerned about running out of ideas for product, or is it really just like, okay, if this one goes good, then I've got this next one on the
you're always kind of wondering, what do we do next?
That's right.
What's the next thing? And you always have a slight concern that maybe the next thing won't sell enough, and then you'll have to stop. But there are definitely things that you think, well, that'd be cool. We're still at the point where it's like, well, that would be cool. After a few years, you maybe get to the point going, well, anyone really want that? And there's always somebody who will. And there's always somebody online who will tell you they want the most obscure, the most kind of like, the thing that makes sense to them, but actually doesn't make that much sense to other people.
You could have made that argument about the 400 ships, like some of them that I've seen. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. That's the Husnock warship. That's right. I remember the survivors.
You see, that's an interesting one, because if you watch TNG as it came out, as I did, a new ship was a big thing to get excited about.
Exactly. Those dang, cargo ships that we saw forever that were the same models.
Turned upside down, painted a different color, with some wings stuck on it. The one that always blew my mind is that the smuggler's ship is the Jovis.
Is it now?
It is. It's the same basic model.
It's the same ship? You mean Kivas Fajo's Jovis?
Yep.
I'll be darned. I did not know that.
It's got extra bits stuck on it.
The smuggler's ship that was introduced in Search for Spock.
In Unification, yeah. No, in Unification.
Oh, Unification.
I mean,
okay.
Well, sorry, don't get me started on this. I can get
really deep.
A long time. But the Merchantman is the ship you're thinking of from Search for Spock. That also turns up as a lot of different ships. That got reused a lot because it didn't have that many models.
Exactly. No, I mean, or even thinking about like Gumtooth, the freaking Peach Pit.
Gumtooth doesn't really get used as anything else. That's a one-off.
That's exactly exactly. But I'm just using that as an example of like someone who's coming up with something creative, to create a design. Or the Echo Papa 607 is a shampoo, bottle in an Easter egg,
Dan,
literally.
That's my friend Dan. Yeah, legs pantyhose holder.
Man.
Yeah, my friend Dan had the original one they made was quite different. And then they were like, we can't get this moved around, we can't use it on the stage. So Dan being Dan, went out, bought a few things in a 7-Eleven, pulled on a green suit, and did it with his Tai Chi movements. And the rest of the VFX team trying very hard to not fall off their chairs laughing. They were laughing so hard.
Oh God! Whatever it does to make it work. Master Okojo, any chance of a Naquadah reactor replica? At what point does the complexity of the item? Yeah, the complexity of the item. I'm wondering if it would make it.
I think so. I think
break the bank.
I think it's worth a Naquadah generator.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that and the Zat Natel, the gun. Some other helmets we might have seen. The other one that we keep thinking about, and again I can see there is some kind of model of Atlantis itself.
Man.
Yeah, exactly. It's just going to
require level of complexity,
a bit of like careful thought. It's not something that just you can just put into a workflow and expect to come out the other end working. But I would love to do it. I mean, I'm very fond of Atlantis.
How do you? This is going somewhere. How do you feel about the? And I forget. You will know the answer to this. I'm not sure which company made it. The Build the Enterprise D project. That would be something that I would think would lend itself well for Atlantis. Because you could do a whole series with that.
That's just a numbers thing. It's a really difficult. I mean, the other thing about those, I actually did build the Enterprise D myself. I'm responsible for it. It's all my fault.
That particular project?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there we go.
But before that, I did, which I was really the first one I did was James Bond's Aston Martin DB5.
So that was not your first barbecue then. Okay.
That was not my first rodeo for sure. And that was a big success, but even bigger success was the Back to the Future DeLorean. And what you discover with that is that what makes those projects work is that you need to have you need people to buy. Again, you're getting people to buy something which is expensive. It costs money.
It adds up at the end of the day.
It adds up at the end of the day, but you're making it affordable to somebody. So you're taking something that would otherwise cost $2,000 or $3,000, and you're making it available for $1,500 or $2,000, but you've got to put it together yourself. And then, in order to make it more democratic, to make it so that real people like you and me can buy it, you end up paying $50-$60 a month for it.
Exactly, and you work your way towards it over a period of time, which is, I just think it's a great idea. It's something that would be really cool for Atlantis, because that's something that I would.
A lot of people to buy something like that one to work.
Okay.
So you'd be amazed
because that has to be designed.
Of Back to the Future, and you have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars up front.
Wow. Yeah, no, that may be completely different. In that. I'm curious, did you have to pay a license to DeLorean Motor Company for that?
Well, in that particular
how does that work?
Case, Universal bought the rights to that car from the.
They have. I did not know that.
But when we did the DB5, we had to have a joint license. So we had a license with Eon, who were the filmmakers who made James Bond at the time before Amazon MGM bought them.
Exactly.
and from Aston Martin. So we had a license from both of them. And then I also did the Ghostbusters Ectomobile, and that is a converted Cadillac, and we had to have the license from Cadillac as well as from Sony for the Ghostbusters films, or from Sony and Ghost Core.
Okay.
The rights holders on that one.
Martin Teichel has another question. Replicators. Is there any interest in creating them? And was that something that you would create at, say, half scale or something full scale? It's a very dangerous
thing to do. I'm going to be very careful about creating replicators. We'll all be overrun.
You have to just don't get two of them in the same place, because that's how you get replicators. So if you have one, you're good.
Of light and power. Replicators are also on my list. Replicators, and again, I think one replicator is the thing that's fascinating about replicators is you make a little kind of replicator spider, I guess. And that's definitely on the list. That's one of the things you think, yeah, that would be cool, and I imagine people would want that.
I would highly recommend that when you ship them, have it so that the legs attach after it arrives, because every one of the replicators that my friends have sent me, at least one leg is broken, and I just super glue it back together and it's fine. But it's really tricky in shipping. Is there any merchandise that you guys have had that proved to be tricky in shipping?
Yes.
Or notorious?
Yes, bitterly. We did a Bajoran Solar Sailor very early on in Deep Space Nine, and even though you did assemble bits of it yourself, it was the sprits and all of those bits are pretty fragile. And I never was prepared to do the Narada from the 2009 movie, because
wow, that's right.
It's got inside there's nothing to hold those parts apart, so that what happens, it's not just the thinness, it's how well they resist pressure, sort of like that makes sense. If there's nothing in there to hold them apart, they break.
Wow. Okay. I was going to nerd out with you for a second on Star Trek, but I'm going to ask that at the end. Here are my 2 cents asks, are there any plans to make larger scale replicas of some of the ships, or to add LED lighting with batteries for some of them?
Yeah, I mean,
because you did different scales for Star Trek.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think probably the goal is to, I mean, one of the things is trying to keep the price point reasonable.
Correct.
So, it's very easy to look at something and go, people will pay $250, because ultimately that's what something like that's likely to end up costing. And there are some people who will, but part of our sort of mission statement is to be affordable. I'm sure there are people there who think, you should be cheaper. It used to be 35 cents when I was a child. So it is something that comes up. I mean, the other one that comes up is a working Stargate. I mean, obviously not a actual wormhole, but a spinning light up Stargate with some kind of wormhole type screen in the middle. That's something that keeps coming up, and we keep talking about, could we do an expensive Stargate that did stuff?
What if they break? I mean, this thing behind me here, this one spins, and I almost never touch it because there's always that last spin. It's really tricky. I saw, when I was in France about a month and a half ago, I saw a Stargate that was about yay tall and did spin, and the chevron opened and closed, and it was magnificent, but they were terrified that it was, if they move it somewhere, that it's going to break.
Yeah. And it would not be cheap. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's these things are not cheap, and people have I think a slightly unrealistic idea of how mass isn't quite the right word, but how producible, how practical some of these things are. So we'd love to do it. And it's on a list of things that we keep thinking about and looking at. But as you say, you'd be so annoyed if you got it and after 2 spins it broke. So we'd have to be confident that that wouldn't happen.
Jedi Greedo wanted to know about staff weapons.
Yes. I mean, I think if you think about what are the iconic things, you can assume that we might have thought of them.
Don't send one to Christopher. I'm just saying, he might break it. So,
well, we would make it built. It would be a lot smaller than Christopher.
He was not a fan. Outside of Stargate, Alex wants to know, have you guys ever considered making a Prime Radiant prop from Foundation? He says a lot of fans would buy it.
Yeah, I mean, Foundation it's a great disappointment to me. Foundation stuff just doesn't seem to sell in the kind of numbers that you'd hope.
Okay.
Foundation is one of the most beautifully designed shows.
Apple's
ever.
where it's at with TV.
Oh, I mean, yeah,
Apple's
Apple science
just
fiction and
extraordinary.
Apple, just like they
Pluribus, yeah. Severance.
Silo.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm saving it.
I haven't watched the new season yet. Me either. I love Rebecca Ferguson. I think Silo's amazing.
Yeah.
And Severance is like the thing.
Have you seen Pluribus yet?
I haven't seen Pluribus yet.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. So great sci-fi ideas in it. But in terms of like
all goes back to the X-Files. Those are the same people.
Exactly right. And you're right. I think Foundation is one of the most beautiful TV shows out there, but that doesn't necessarily translate into just because something is beautiful doesn't necessarily mean that an item for that is going to necessarily sell well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great channel. I really love Foundation, and I loved working on it, and it's difficult to make it work financially.
What's your dream prop that you would love to own?
Have I not already done that? I'm trying to think. I'm not even sure my dream prop would necessarily be. I mean, I'm too careless. I wouldn't be a good custodian.
I love my tricorders. I've got a Mark 9.
I mean, if we're talking about if I actually owned a real thing that was used on screen, I would be so overjoyed to have, probably just because they're so the props from the cage from the original Star Trek pilot.
Yeah.
I mean the original.
The original communicator?
The original run Star Trek Type 2 phasers.
Yeah.
I mean, there are hardly any of them in the world, and they're all authenticated and everyone knows where they are and all of that. They are incredibly desirable, and they're a very, very tempting thing, but I would not be a good custodian for it. I would not be the right person to My big thing, a bit like you were saying about Stargate's concept art. I have digitally. I have probably one of the biggest collections of concept art in the world, because it's just where my head's at, and I'm always intrigued by it, and I love
absolutely. No,
people don't get enough credit as well.
Isn't the Diamond Select Toys Mark II phaser, wasn't that used in Enterprise?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think that's technically a screen use prop.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, they used Hallmark Christmas ornament, birds of prey in Way of the Warrior.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
But
I've gone through 3 of them because I keep on breaking off the guns.
They're only in the background,
Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, geez, I did not know that. That's wild.
Another sorry, this is getting very Star Trek-y. Another piece of silly Star Trek trivia: the gold ships are actually AMT model kits, mostly that John Eves had gold plated in downtown LA.
Wow, there we go. Like the ones like on the E.
Yeah, in the lounge and on the E.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay.
In your little ships.
Yeah. Exactly. Must be drawn here. Suns and Shadows cast. Any chance for an SGU seed ship? Has that been given any consideration?
It's on
and
the
how
list.
have the sales been?
Destiny's been great. I mean, Destiny's one of those ones where you kind of, I don't know, draw a line. I mean, that's one of those things where you might be a little anxious, where you're like, okay, well, universe,
we're getting specific. Yeah.
Seasons. Do people
Yeah.
care? And it turns out they do. Um, and I think it turns out also that sometimes when there's been nothing
Hmm.
for a show, then people are really keen to get something. But yeah, the Seed ship is on the list. The Wraith ships are on the list as well. They're just a bit blobby. I mean, they're very, because they're so organic. They're
They're
not
not as elegant as some
necessarily
of the
what people
others.
think of when they think of as a spaceship.
Yeah,
So again,
exactly.
you have a little caution about them.
Yeah.
But we tracked down the rest of the Goa'uld ships, and they're on the way.
Fantastic.
The
Well,
Ori. Again, the Ori, to people, yeah, get that same sense of like the Ori. It's not quite the same as Universe, not exactly the same thing, but people didn't ever. I don't think people loved the Ori as much as they loved the Goa'uld.
and how are you
Um,
going to do that light ball? I mean,
we
there's only
might have been
so much.
discussing that. Might have been discussing that. There might be a way.
Oh, interesting. All right, very good. Um, uh, Philippe wants to know any thoughts on the ancient life science detector?
Yeah, we have to be honest. I mean, we only ever think like two or three things ahead,
Okay.
so you're not quite that far down the list. I
Okay.
mean, what we're thinking about at the moment. So I told you we did these light up panels for Star Trek. Is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about actually is we're thinking about what kind of screen use graphics we might be able to track down or create something that was like a blueprint schematic that was in a light up panel. If that's something that people would be interested in.
Okay.
Um, that's something. I think there's a schematic of Atlantis that we might have to look into recreating.
I have the original blueprints of the dial home device from the fifth race, and it's not the blueprint that was used in the show. It is the concept art that was made to create the blueprint, and it's top 5 in my collection in terms of
Yeah,
pieces.
just beauty and intricacy. Yeah.
Yeah, because all the handwritten notes. I mean, you can sit there and read through A to like F or
I
G
love
or whatever it
love all
is,
that stuff.
and it's exquisite. Like that, something like that in terms of like a
I mean, that's definitely a possibility. I mean, what I was thinking of more specifically was something that looked like a computer screen from the show.
oh, I see
So,
what you're saying.
like when they go into like the lift in Atlantis, and there's like I think when Atlantis is under siege and they're looking at the graphic showing which sections of Atlantis are still habitable, which ones have been taken over. That
Okay.
kind of because those things look really cool. I that one's downstairs, or I'd plug it in and show you. But the Star Trek ones, is what we talked about at the beginning of the
Oh,
show.
the L cars. Yeah.
Yeah, the L card. So if we could find something equivalent to that for Atlantis, but it would
Hmm.
have to be sexy enough. We don't just want
Yeah.
button.
Okay. Understood. Okay. I'll put my mind to work. Uh, uh, Enrique Martinez Moreno, thoughts on the dial home device?
Yeah, we should do that. We should do a DHD. I mean, the only reason I hesitate slightly is the DHD, if it's in scale with the gates, which is the kind of first thought, it's going to be too small, I think.
Yeah.
So I think maybe if it's the same kind of size as the Serpent Guard helmet,
Just fudge
then
it a little bit,
yeah, well, it'll be half the size of the gate. It'll be half
right?
the height of the gate,
Okay,
more than
fudge it a lot of
half.
it.
But it's a cool thing in its own. It's like people will be like, "Oh, I want a gate to go with it." But actually, the DHD is a pretty cool thing on its own. And as you say, it's got all that detail on it. You actually look at all the
Exactly.
glyphs.
Talk about an interesting paint job for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, exactly.
That's a whole process in and of itself. Ben, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you coming back on. It's it's always a treat to nerd out with you, as
Oh,
well
well,
as
I'm
get an
very
update.
nerdy, so that part's easy.
uh,
But yeah, I mean,
um,
I think the big thing to say is obviously Stargate's been a weird time,
yeah.
and I think
Oh, don't get me
going
started.
from such highs to such lows in the last 6 months.
Hmm.
Um, I think and I've been there with other fandoms, and I think the truth is it shows you there is an interest, and that things do find a way back. But in the meantime, I think we are we were here before there was talk of a new show. We're still here. Stargate's doing nicely for us. We're very keen to do more, but it's always got to be something that is, cool, desirable, has the opportunity for detail, and that people really want. So,
And the quality, if the quality is there, the fans will come. There are plenty of completist Stargate fans out there. I mean, I'm sure you know a number of folks who have all 400 of the ships that you did. So there is a collector card kind of mentality to a lot of this stuff, where it's like, okay, I won't feel complete until they are complete. and the nice thing is that they're reasonably priced, so that you can do that.
That's the goal.
You can get one a month or whatever, and work your way to complete it. I have over here Star Trek the magazine, that was that ran for 4 years. Was it 4 years or 8? No, 4.
It was 5.5, 6 years of my life. But
okay. You were involved in these.
I was the editor of that. I wrote most of it. If you're talking about the one around the turn of the century,
right here,
that the perfect bound, like the spine.
These?
Yep, that's me. Yeah.
Seriously, dude.
Yeah.
I worked for years to complete this collection because and there's 3 others. I was so thankful that I got one of the all the slipcases before they ran out. I'm not a big completist in terms of, or collector in terms of Trek, but this is the one complete thing that I have, and they're absolutely gorgeous. So thank you for them. They're just beautiful.
But, that was my big. That's how I made friends with a lot of people.
Man, I'm so blown away with how you guys did the 3/4 illustrations of all of the sets. Like, just absolutely mind blowing how you recreated all those with the pullouts and everything.
Ways of doing it. Yeah. So they come from an original UK publication called the Star Trek Fact Files, which I started on. Well, I did the first 50 or 60 issues of that, and then I went off to do that magazine. That was when we started. So a lot of things have their origins there. That's when I got to know John Eves and Ira Bear and Ron Moore and the other Ron Moore, and Dan Curry and those kind of people for the first time. And I'm still friends with a lot of those people.
Was that
amazing interviews? Oh, it was extraordinary. A lot of people.
There's some great stuff in there. I was selected for I think I'm in there once or twice in terms of from the email section.
Oh, did you write in? Oh, well,
I did, absolutely. I asked about the Excelsior and comparisons with the design of the Sovereign, like the 5th or 6th issue that you guys did. But they're just beautiful pieces, and I was so disappointed, just completely blindsided. And I still remember reading the last one. I don't know who it was. It was on I think it had something to do with Nana. It was DS9 is what it was. And it says at the end of it, sadly, this is our last issue. And I'm reading it in the back of my parents' car. I'm like, what? Like, why? Did you just ran out of material, or?
No, it was sales. The problem with those things is that the number of returns that you have to cope with.
Yeah.
So yeah, we didn't run out of material. I still haven't run out of material. Still going back to some of those same pieces and talking to the same people. I mean, I did on that magazine. So this has become a Star Trek podcast.
I apologize. I don't apologize.
I won't apologize for it. But I went out and saw Matt Jeffries. I spent the afternoon with Matt, and Penny, who ran our office at Paramount, was kind of adopted Matt and Marianne, but I hadn't really realized that no one else had really sat down with him and really asked him about that. So I think I did the major interview with Matt Jeffries, and I talked to Andrew Probert, Rick Sternbach, John Eves, all those concept artist guys. Sid Mead. I went to Sid Mead's house. That was a kind of cool thing. And I used to talk to Leonard Nimoy quite often. Funnily enough, I was talking to Adam Nimoy about that.
Mm-hmm.
That we did, yeah. I mean, I'd still, it was such a foundational time in my life, and so much, and set that, and I learned how to do what I do doing that magazine.
Wow. Well, thank you for it.
Well, thank you for buying it. I was like, it was very good for me. And I know, the other person, funny enough, who I always it talks about it is Ira Bear,
Ira,
who is one of my favorite people. And Ira, we did a piece. I did a piece with Ira where we looked back at Cisco, the whole kind of evolution of Cisco over 7 years, and I think it was the first time he'd done that. So he all made sense that he'd done it day by day. He'd done it as he went. But to actually,
yeah, I mean, from broken man to God.
Yeah, but to actually step back and look at it and say, oh, well, they wouldn't let us do all this Bajoran politics stuff, so we did this instead, and then we did this, and and it was like it was the first time he saw it as an overview, if that makes sense.
Wow.
And we're still doing stuff. I'm still doing some really, I mean, we do these little Star Trek ships now at Master Replicas, and they come with quite substantial little books like this.
Yeah, very cool.
And I just did really kind of in-depth. There's loads of stuff about the early origins of Discovery that nobody's ever published before in there. And I'm just working on a big one that relates to Picard season 3 at the moment, and lots of concept art that no one's ever seen. And yeah, I'm really proud of the one we did for Picard season 1. There's a lot of stuff. I talked to Michael Chabon, who sent me a very nice email to say how much he appreciated it. That's why I collect those kind of emails.
Of course, yeah. Your work is appreciated. I cannot wait to get my hands on building the bridge, or rebuilding the bridge, I guess I should say. I will read that cover to cover.
You will. It was the most detailed book ever published about Star Trek, and I think it's fascinating because it also it talks about a load of people who don't normally get talked about. It talks about the craftspeople, it talks about the construction people, it talks about the upholsterer, it talks about that, Liz. I mean, Liz, who wrote the book, right? She was there, absolutely. And she put her heart and soul into getting that bridge to look the way it should. And they did massive amount of research, and yeah, I mean, it's a real testimony to how much the people who work on those shows care. Yeah, and it's got a lot of pictures in it. It's got a lot of pictures in it.
I can't wait to see it. Though that's the nice thing about having at this point in time, with as much research and as easy as it is to take photos and store them, you're going to have a lot of stuff to work with, especially something as iconic as this. And so it only makes sense to see something like that. So that's really cool. Ben, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate having you on. I can't wait to see what you've got coming up next. And yeah, I would love to sit down with you about and see if maybe James would be interested in talking as well, because it's something that he's been wanting to do for a long time.
Investigating.
Absolutely. All righty, sir. I'm going to wrap up the show on this side, but you take care of yourself.
Thank you. I'm going to go and watch the rest of the football. Doesn't look like anyone scored, so it's a very English story. Very English
That's
story.
it. Have a good time, sir.
Okay.
Be well. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon. Thank you again. Bye.
Absolutely. Thank you. That is Ben Robinson of Master Replicas. Their stuff is absolutely exquisite. I have always been blown away by this company. It's one of the reasons that I've been a customer of theirs since the early 2000s, the amount of stuff that they're able to create and the accuracy of things. So really cool to have him on once again. My name is David Reed. You're watching the Stargate Oral History Project. If you enjoy the show and you want to see more content like this continuing on YouTube, please do me a favor and click that like button. It does help with the show and make a difference in our numbers. And leave a comment if there was something that you enjoyed in this episode. My tremendous thanks to my Patreons. I cannot do this show without you guys. And I'm so insanely grateful. So especially now that we don't have a new series coming out, it's like, well, how am I going to move forward with this? And you guys came in and grabbed me at a time when I really needed the help. And so it's just such a treat to be able to move forward with all of you backing me in this project. And the fact of the matter is that my thanks are just absolutely endless. We are going to be going on a bit of a break for a little bit here, but we're going to be back at San Diego Comic-Con for a live event on Friday the 24th. And we're going to have a few pre-recorded episodes sprinkled in and out of there. So I'm going to be a little bit spotty for the next month or so. So I appreciate y'all being with me through this process. If you didn't watch our episode earlier today of the live auction of the location Stargate from SG1, go and check that out because it sold for an interesting amount of money. I was kind of surprised, but that's what we've got for you. My name is David Reed. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you to Anthony, to Raj, and to Lockwatcher for moderating, guys. You guys are the best. I'll see y'all on the other side. Bye-bye.